Hey, it's Bumbleberry, and we are back with Seduce Me, and Matthew is going to give us a little secret, if I'm not mistaken. He's holding my hand with a concerned frown on his face.
My name.
Ah, your name?
My true name isn't Matthew. I want you to know my real name, if something were to happen.
Okay. His true name. What did he mean? Why was he telling me this now? So when we get kidnapped, we will be able to summon him. Matthew gently pulled me to him and leaned close to whisper in my ear.
My name is Zekeru.
Matthew pulled away and smiled at me despite still carrying worry in his eyes.
If you are in any danger, call my...
Oh, didn't mean it. Let's go back.
If you are in any danger, call my name. I promise that I'll come and help you.
I stared at Matthew, unable to say anything. I could only nod in response. He smiled before releasing my hand and heading to the dining room. Something told me that name would be used eventually. And we're going to school. It's a glare at you. Hate you, jerk face. Zekeru! Zekeru! Did I pronounce that right? All of a sudden, a bright purple light engulfed the room, causing the devils around me to cover themselves.
What the?
Gusts of wind rushed past me, almost forcing me back. I covered my face with my arms, bracing myself and standing my ground. I tried to peek through my arms to see what was going on, but the light continued to shine brightly. As the gust slowly started to die, the lights began to fade, revealing Matthew with his hands shoved in his pockets and his hood up. Matthew. Malik slowly moved his arms from his face, taking in the sight of Matthew before laughing hysterically.
Are you kidding me? You summoned the crybaby runt?
Malik's laugh was cut short, however, stopped by his gasp of pain and the thud of something embedding itself into flesh. I couldn't believe it, but somehow a knife had been stabbed into Malik's shoulder, causing him to grip at it in pain.
What the hell? A knife?
Next time, I won't miss your throat.
He looks like a ninja. Malik snarled before ripping the knife out of his shoulder and tossing it to the ground. He quickly raised his gun and shot at Matthew, resulting only to stare wide-eyed at his target. In midair, a knife and Malik's bullet clashed, and both collided to the ground between the demon and the devil. Matthew chuckled and pulled his hand out of his pockets, revealing a handful of knives laid out like a fan.
Too slow, Malix. Must suck being an old fart.
He was furious, charging at Matthew while shooting rounds at Matthew's shadow-covered face. Matthew followed suit, rushing backwards, and shot his knives at each of Malix's shots. Each shot was stopped by a flying knife, making multiple clangs beat through the air. The remaining devils stare, trying to figure out what to do, help Malix or watch in silence. Eris is annoyed and watches with an amused smirk on her face. As Matthew backed into the far wall, he stood still, tossing knife upon knife at the incoming devil and his bullets.
Gotcha, you knife-throwing circus freak!
I saw a smirk grow on Matthew's face before he hopped up and flipped over Malix. The devil skidded to a stop, barely bumping against the brick wall. Matthew, however, didn't give Malix a chance to turn before shooting multiple knives into Malix's back.
Ah!
Bye-bye, Malix.
Matthew tossed a knife into the air and caught it before chucking it at the back of his head. The knife sadly didn't get to meet its target, as he ducked out of the way to turn and face Matthew with a face of pure rage.
You little shit! You think you're all that?
Matthew brought out another knife and tossed it up and down his hand, unchanged in his cool yet almost playful expression.
Little known fact, I just like having fun.
That's a load of bull, Matthew. You won't even fight me in your demon form. Why? Are you afraid I'll kill you as the demon scum you really are?
Demon form. However, I couldn't finish the thought. Matthew broke my thoughts and trying to figure that out.
Hey, mind closing your eyes for me?
Weirdo.
What are you babbling about now?
Before I could answer, the tension suddenly went from warm to almost ice cold. Then, at that moment, something in the air changed. Ooh. The air instantly went from frantic to still in energy. What could have been described as in tone as the color red quickly turned into a deadly mix of purple and blue as everything began to blend together all at once.
You asked for it, Malix. Now you're gonna get it.
My eyes never strayed from Matthew's face, however, even as it changed. His eyes began to glow a bright golden color. His dark blue circle formed underneath his bare feet. I stared as Matthew's skin began to morph and shift, changing from human to something else. For some reason, I was both scared and incredibly intrigued to see this new form. Someone cover my eyes. Rude.
It's me. Don't look.
Fine. Don't look, why? I wanted to know what was being hidden from me, but something told me to obey Damien's command. There were lots of gunshots, followed by multiple stabs, followed by Malix's screams of pain. The stabbing and splashing sounds of blood and flesh grew more frantic and in number. How many knives was Matthew using? Maybe it was better I wasn't able to see.
Matthew, enough!
Almost instantly after James's command, the sound stopped. The only thing anyone could hear then was the dripping of blood.
I guess I went a little overboard, huh?
Malix is definitely dead, but you've lost your glamour spell.
Glamour spell? What did he mean? And why did Matthew sound so different? What was this being hidden from me? Or why was this being hidden from me? Sorry. It's kind of late. I can't read anymore.
It's a spell that makes us look human.
That's nice. Look human? They didn't have human forms?
Like demons.
As if Eric knew what Damien was talking about, Eric cleared his throat and spoke up, following by the sound of a cork popping out of a bottle.
Well, not for much longer, Princess.
Aww.
Here, Matthew.
Oh, hey, you found my potion. Thanks.
I could hear that small clinking of glass being passed before hearing Matthew guzzle down a liquid of some sort. The feel of the air around me gently began to warm back up, insinuating that everything had been returned to normal. Finally, Damien removed his hands. Thank you, sir. The devils, including Eris, had fled. On top of Malix's body was a dirty sheet that was quickly turning red from blood. The wall behind it was painted red still dripping onto the floor and onto the blanket. The blanket looked like it was covering a mound of dirt instead of a body. The boys, however, had gathered all around me, all of them, including Matthew, looking like nothing had happened. What just... I tried to speak, but everything zipped around in my head and the whole event, and I felt like speaking wasn't even possible.
Let's just get you home, miss. There's nothing more to see here.
I agree. Looked at Matthew. He rubbed the back of his neck, walking forward as if to get away from what had happened. It was over. You know, why isn't there more of like a kudos? Oops, sorry. Why isn't there more of a kudos? Okay, so they want to leave. Or they're asking if they should. Matthew, like, barely is covering James right now. I looked to Matthew, feeling my heart flutter in my chest. I didn't want him to leave, but would he ask to stay? I hoped that he would say no and ask me to stay longer. As if he knew what I wanted, Matthew moved and stepped to me, taking my hands in his. He gently smiled at me and spoke.
I want you to know that you've been really generous to us, and I want to thank you for letting us stay here. But is it okay if we stay a little longer?
My heart skipped while a large red blush ran across my cheeks. The boy stared at Matthew wide-eyed, but didn't dare speak out. Matthew stepped back to give me my space, returning to where he was. I moved my gaze across each boy, trying to make a decision. Shocking. Let them stay. Let them stay. I wanted him to stay. I merely smiled, staring at the man I had come to have feelings for before speaking at last. I would love it if you all could stay. The boys cheered tiredly, but nonetheless enthusiastically. Aww. My home is your home, as long as you can still help with the chores. The boys nodded in unison, agreeing to the terms I had set for them. Despite the good situation, I felt myself slowly slipping into unconsciousness.
All right, everyone.
Let's go to sleep. I watched a happy smile grow onto Matthew's lips. He shared my excitement, knowing we would be together longer. Who knew how long we would stay together? All I cared about was that I would be with him. Ooh, they left me and Matthew alone at last. My heart fluttered a bit as Matthew practically skipped closer to me in excitement. It was really cute to see him that way, so I didn't do anything but smile.
Thank you so much for letting us stay.
You're welcome, Matthew. I'm happy to have you stay here. I watched his smile brighten a bit before he cleared his throat and chuckled a bit. I didn't know if it was the tiredness or my growing attachment to him, but I felt myself sway a bit on my feet. However, Matthew's face made it clear he wanted to say something else, making me forget that my bed was also calling for me.
Listen, about what happened at the warehouse.
Did what you gotta do, Matthew. Do what you gotta do. I was too tired to explore that memory further. Matthew nodded before holding out a hand to me.
Come on then. Let's get you to bed.
Yay! I really hope that she has really fun pajamas. I nodded before Matthew gently lifted me up in his arms like a bride and carried me to my room. I didn't want to leave his arms, leaning my head against Matthew's chest, but eventually I was slowly lowered to my bed and covered in my covers. Okay. I was still in my stool clothes, but I was too tired to strip or to care. I looked to Matthew, fighting a yawn escaping me as he gently ran a hand over my hair.
Have a good night, okay? I'll make breakfast again in the morning.
Oh, spoiled. I love breakfast. I nodded with a tired smile before watching him slowly stand and leave my room, closing the door. A wave of happiness washed over me as I laid in bed. I made a good choice. I felt my exhaustion take over. Diana, leave me alone. I'll just tell you, it doesn't matter.
Diana? Is she important?
Not this round. Excuse me. Leave them alone. Ooh. And Matthew is looking at me. Because he loves us. Matthew walked over to me and held my hand gently, looking at me with a smile.
Everything will be okay. Promise.
I nodded, feeling that he was telling the truth, or at least a hopeful and comforting thought. Matthew gently leaned closer to me and kissed my cheek, however, making me blush and forget what I was thinking about. Well, how sweet. Oh, the sound of collective chuckles and jokes whispered throughout the air, making me blush even more, but the laughter stopped as Sam let out an oof after a fluffy object collided with his face. That's kind of fantastic. I looked up to see Matthew glaring at his brothers holding up a fluffy anime plushie. He and I pulled away from each other just as the sound of Naomi's car appeared. Oh gosh. That was cute. It doesn't matter. This time. Don't worry about it, Diana. Don't worry. Matthew is the guy that I like. And stopped in her tracks.
Matthew? Who is...
Then dawned on her.
Ah, one of the boys. Why don't you tell me which boy is Matthew?
I felt myself nod in compliance. Fourth. I kind of giggled before letting go of my face and stepping back.
Really? The child? With you?
Rude. It was partly my own decision to reply. Diana let out a sound that mimicked a cat's purr before stepping away from me.
All right, then. Well, if it's the fourth son you're infatuated with, you should really rethink your romantic options.
I know you love me, Diana. You think I'm a beautiful human being. Oh, she kissed my nose. That's cute. It'll be okay. Just trust him. Oh, we're gonna go in the past. Who's ready for a journey? Alright. Well, let's see what's going on. So the boys are all demon princes. Oh. I rubbed my eyes and sat up, letting a soft groan escape my lips. In response, something beside my bed shuffled, causing me to look over. Is it Simon? It's Matthew! I smiled at him, seeing his slightly ruffled hair and tired eyes.
Oh, you're awake. How do you feel?
I feel better. Matthew nodded before he looked down at the bed, taking my hands into his.
I'm really sorry. I'm really, really sorry.
Matthew, it's not your fault.
No, please listen. I know that Diana and Malix have come after you because of us, so it's our fault that you're constantly in danger. If I hadn't convinced everyone to come to the human world, we would have never been attacked by Malix and hunted down and brought you in danger and...
I quickly reached over and put my finger on his lips, stopping him from going any further. I didn't want to hear anymore. Matthew, it's okay. I wanted to help you out. I offered to let you all stay. Nothing is your fault. I gently moved my hand and cut Matthew's cheek, staring at him with concern. I didn't want him to hold guilt in his mind about this whole ordeal. Dana was desperate, and she'd hunt anyone for them. It wasn't his fault she was desperate enough to hunt them down. However, I did grow curious. So, Matthew, you're a noble? Matthew looked at me and gave me a goofy smile. That smile is hilarious. Whoever drew that, you're hilarious. I don't know if you meant it to be ridiculous, but it's fantastic.
I was once, but even if I had the title, I didn't really feel like a noble.
How come?
Well, I was the 4th noble son of the Demon Lord. With Eric and Sam ahead of me in case James couldn't fulfill his duties, there was no way I was getting the throne. So, I spent the majority of my time trying to make my mother happy. She was always unhappy.
Aww. Unhappy? How come?
Well, my dad was he married 4 different women.
Yeah. Well, you already told me this. She got
The other
jealous.
wives got mad and scorned each other. It wasn't violent, but we never ate together for a reason. My mom, though, was too proud to have jealousy. She was the last woman the Demon Lord married, so she felt important. She felt that because he stopped marrying, she had the charm to stop his marrying spree.
Matthew let out a small laugh, a hint of desperation lingering in the breath he let out.
But then the Demon Lord took another woman and she bore him a son outside of wedlock. Damien. The wives, including my mother, were furious. In response, the Demon Lord had a spell cast on them, turning them into spiritual orbs.
That's horrible. He nodded, pressing his lips together in agreement and sadness.
They could never have physical form, and they lost all their powers. They became slaves trapped in the Demon Lord's castle. However, they were kept alive to make sure their sons grew up to be competent demons.
Woohoo! I'm sorry. Matthew gently shrugged, letting a small nostalgic smile grace his lips. See, he looks really classy there, doesn't he? Look at how classy he is.
She taught me how to be a demon, though. Not just a demon, a grown, adult demon. I read books, I learned strategy, everything that James was doing under the Demon Lord's watch. Only, I trained with just my mother. She wanted me to surprise the Demon Lord one last time, and maybe take the throne away from James.
Rude? Matthew then reached into his pocket and took out a small mirror.
Here, I'll show you.
Matthew handed it to me and sent a wave of blue mist into it. It began to glow until it enveloped the room in a bright light. When the light had subsided, I was back in the main hall of the demon castle. I looked around, feeling unable to move, but I could practically see everything as clear as I had before. However, my gaze focused on Matthew, sitting in the throne as if it was his, and reading a book. For some reason, he reminded me of James at that moment. He seemed so engrossed in his reading each word and absorbing in the meaning. Him on the throne surprisingly fit him. There was something about him. He looks like a cat.
This is an easy read.
A saddened cry, however, echoed through the hall, forcing Matthew to stop, close the book, and stand from the throne.
Mother?
I looked around, confused at the cry and where it was coming from. It seemed to just echo through the room without any source of direction. Matthew sighed and placed the book on the armrest of the throne before he cupped his hands together.
Fly and comfort her, will you?
This is really creepy to hear. I don't know if you can hear it. As Matthew opened up his hands, a small bird with blue and purple feathers perked up from his hiding space. Oh! It flew through the open archway. The sound of its flapping wings faded in the air as it flew further into the castle.
Come on.
I could tell that Matthew was holding his breath. He must have cared very deeply for his mother. It was incredibly sweet. At last the sound of the crying stopped, making Matthew release a happy sigh.
There we go.
Aww. He cracked his knuckles in approval and reached for his book. However, before he could even graze the cover with his fingers, the sound of pattering entered the room.
You, fourth son, away from the throne!
All right.
Ah, what am I going to do with you? You're a child.
Matthew glared at the servant, and he quickly brushed the throne off, like there was dust all over it. He is not dirty.
Next time I see you on the throne, I will inform the Demon Lord. Understand?
Yes.
The demon servant continued to brush the throne before knocking the book from the armrest. Matthew froze as the servant quickly patted over and picked it up.
What is this? A book? Why do you have it?
I was reading.
You read? You don't need to read. You're never going to need knowledge for anything, fourth son.
I saw Matthew's eye twitch, making me grimace. The servant sure had a mouth. It was annoying at the very least.
I'll just take this book and bring it to the heir himself to read. He's reading faster than the library can provide.
But that's...
Raestro's next area of study.
Oh. The servant began to walk away, ignoring Matthew's glare of anger. The servant stopped, however, to look to Matthew to pound one more nail into the wound.
Let's face it, kid. You have the smallest horns, the smallest frame, and the least amount of power among the noble sons. You'll never be like them, so just stop trying. Use your incubus powers on others who have a child fetish or something.
Oh! Demon looked Matthew up and down before rushing off where he came from, wherever he came from. As he disappeared, Matthew summoned a knife and chucked it in the direction where the servant left. The knife embedded itself into the hard stone beside the door into the hall.
Ugh, I hate that guy. Disgusting pig fawn.
He walked over and sat at the foot of the throne, clearly aggravated. Oh. Eventually Matthew stopped the magic, lowering the mirror and holding it in his hands before looking at me.
I had hoped to show you my mother, but I guess the mirror wanted to show you something else. Sorry.
Oh, that servant is terrible.
Tell me about it. He served the Demon Lord almost his whole life. Ugly pig fawn.
Matthew laughed while I laughed at the insult. It was good to see Matthew in good spirits despite what was shown and what was happening around us. Still, it was sad to see he was considered the child of the noble sons. He could read books of knowledge that his brother hadn't read, and he seemed caring. It was insulting to see someone tear him down like that. Matthew smiled at me before pocketing the mirror.
Whatever. Thankfully we got out of there, so I could be with my brothers like a normal family. No hierarchies, no politics, no pig funds, nothing.
I smiled. It was good that he saw the positive side. However, his face slowly turned to a sad one before he looked down at the bed. Matthew?
You've done a lot for me and my brothers. Sheltering us, letting us continue to live here. It may not seem like much, but for us it's everything. But I don't want you to get hurt because of us.
I watched in speechless silence as Matthew lifted his head, his eyes full of almost hopelessness.
That's why I'm sorry.
He lowered his head in shame. I couldn't help but feel my heart squeeze within my chest at the sight. He truly cared. Matthew let out a small sigh before looking at me with a new smile. He hid his sadness well, but I could tell he was still upset about the whole ordeal.
Alright. You need to sleep and I need to make dinner. I'll wake you up when dinner is done.
Where's my time for secret kissing? Yes, here's the kiss. I'm gonna steal it. I couldn't let him leave without doing something. I quickly pulled Matthew down to me, lifted my head, and gently kissed him, softly laying a hand on his cheek to keep his face close. Matthew stared in deep surprise before hesitantly kissing me back, caressing my cheek and slightly melting at the touch of our lips. A soft sigh... Why is that the hardest thing for me to say? A soft sigh escaped his lips before he slowly pulled away with a smile. He gently licked his lips, making me go red in the face at the simple gesture. He let out a satisfied sigh before nuzzling my forehead.
Go to sleep.
Okay. I'm taking a nap, Diana. Stop harassing me. Oh. I wasn't gonna lose to that demon wench. Oh, he's asking her to leave him alone. Diana was with Matthew. My mind flew in slow motion, playing fake images of Diana trying to seduce Matthew in my head to further fan the angry flame inside of me. I followed Matthew's voice. It was echoing from the kitchen. I hope Simon comes in and attacks her. I was almost growled at the sight. Matthew was holding on to the side of the kitchen island counter, with Diana holding the other side, looking to him with a smirk.
Oh, come on, Matthew. Don't you like games? A game of tag sounds so fun.
Not with you. Now go away!
I'm hurt. Wounded, truly. Did I go too far?
You're so rude. You're talking childish, like demeaning him.
You went too far when you came here and attacked her.
Pity. And here I thought I was going to offer you the chance to become something better than just a simple incubus.
He's awesome. What was Diana going on about? More than just an incubus. She was insane.
How about becoming the next demon lord?
I froze. What did she mean? Becoming the next demon lord? The boys weren't in the demon world anymore. They had no claim to the throne anymore. Matthew stared at Diana, which made me worried.
The next demon lord?
Well, currently, I'm the contracted bride to the heir to the throne. Since the throne is open, it's available to any son of the demon lord's line. Think about it. You'll gain
You
the
should say
throne,
no.
the land, and a bride to continue your lineage with. Doesn't that sound like a perfect life for an incubus like you? You'll show your father and mother how grown up you are, that you're not just some little cute boy people can take for granted.
I could feel myself gripping my fist tightly in anger. How dare this girl try to convince Matthew to return to the demon world? He ran away from it. He didn't have to go back. He shouldn't go back. Oh no, they would all leave. Matthew would be the new demon lord with Diana as his queen, and I'd lose him.
Like I would believe you.
You don't need to believe me, Matthew. You just need to come back home with me. I promise you'll be respected as you were supposed to be.
I'm not falling for it.
Fall for what? The truth? The truth is that your brothers still treat you like a child, even though the demon world is far behind you. The truth is that your little human love affair is fleeting. She can never see you as a man, just as a little boy who wants to grow up.
Stop it!
Fierce. I stared as Matthew chucked a handful of knives at Diana, who ducked and dodged them with ease. They dug themselves into the tile wall before fading away as if they didn't exist. I just realized the reason he has knives and he's good at cooking is because cooking involves knives, doesn't it? I mean, sometimes. That's clever. I wonder if he can summon forks, too.
You dare attack me?
I'm not going back. And that is final!
I could see Matthew's muscles tense and flex, wanting to attack Diana. The girl in question, however, took a deep breath and looked to Matthew with a pleading look.
You won't even return to your mother? She's been crying ever since you left.
That's so mean.
Do not bring her into this!
Matthew glared at Diana, circled towards the island.
She begged me to bring you back. She wants you to get what you deserve. The throne.
I don't believe you!
Matthew then walked away from Diana, heading to the fridge to start dinner as if she wasn't there. Diana stopped and leaned against the counter.
She'll never love you, you know.
Are you talking about me?
I don't mind. I care for her.
The human girl? You must be joking. A human like her can't possibly provide you what you need. She's a human. You're a demon.
I felt the urge to storm in and shut her mouth. And I did. I decided to be assertive and quickly stepped into the room, rushing in front of Matthew. Dan and Matthew looked at me in surprise as I glared daggers at Diana. Get out.
Well, well, little human. You're awfully nosy in business that doesn't concern you.
It does concern me.
Does it? I don't think a human would understand the importance of this affair.
You're asking him to leave to be someone he doesn't want to be. That's not going to happen.
Oh? And what makes you so sure about that?
I love him. He's not a child. I love him. Dana stared in shock at my exclamation. Was it not what she expected? I didn't care what she expected. I was not going to lose the man that I had grown to love.
You love him?
Yes. I love him. Dana's like, oh, he looks so happy. And actually, Dana looks kind of amused and like, oh, good for you, honey bear.
So what? A human's love isn't enough to understand the situation. A demon can never reciprocate human feeling.
That's cool. To both of our surprise, however, Matthew stepped forward and put an arm around me, pulling me close to his body.
I love her.
Aww. I saw the confidence Diana had shatter in her eyes as she stared at Matthew and his words. I could see the struggle in her face to try and find some weakness in Matthew. In me. Anything.
A demon love a human? Impossible.
You heard me. I love her, Diana. I'd do anything for her, and she cares for me more than anyone in the abyssal plane ever had. More than you'll ever know. She makes me feel like the adult I'm supposed to be, and there's nothing you can do to change that. Ever.
Dana took a step back, physically feeling the sting of Matthew's words in her chest. She had lost. I could see it in her eyes. Then his eyes grew dull as she glared at me and Matthew. It seemed almost uncharacteristic of her, yet it was something I wasn't surprised to see come from her face.
Very well. Fine. Vale.
Adios. Andiamo. Matthew and I were left alone. Whew. Matthew stepped to me and held me gently, surprising me.
Are you all right?
Oh, I'm fine. He let out a sigh, relaxing in the embrace. I gently placed my hands around him, returning the embrace slightly. My words, I apologize. I could hear his heartbeat. He held me close in his arms, and I felt safe beyond words. Are you okay?
Of course I'm okay. I'm holding you.
Oh, I looked up at Matthew, surprised at what he said. Matthew blushed, moving a strand of my hair from my face to look down at me.
You mean so much to me. You make me feel like more than just a kid. I've never felt this happy before with anyone, and here you are giving me every reason to love you. I love you so friggin' much.
I stared wide-eyed, blushing like a maniac. Was this real? No way, this couldn't be real. Was Matthew confessing to me? Confessing his love for me? You're talking about this like he didn't just say it today, like 5 seconds ago. He gently caressed my cheek, staring into my eyes with a loving, almost hopeful expression. The warmth of his hand invited me to nuzzle into it, closing my eyes. This wasn't a dream. My heart was pounding hard enough to know where I was. I'm sure Matthew could hear it. He gently leaned in, closing his eyes. He stopped, however, meaning just a mere torturous inch away from my lips. He wanted me to show my feelings for him. He left himself open for me to kiss him or leave him empty. Oh, let's kiss him. Matthew let out an almost surprised gasp as I kissed him, before wrapping both of his arms around my waist, pulling me close to him. I moved my arms up and around his neck, feeling the kiss between us deepen to a heated height. My chest was pounding, making me feel and see fireworks in my mind. He was everything I wanted. He was the man I desired, demon or not. It was also supernatural to fall in love with someone so quickly. And these are going to be the same as what we did before. Our tongues danced as one of his hands slid up my back and cradled my head. He gently leaned my body back, making me cling to him as the heat of our kisses rose higher and higher. Gently, though, Matthew slowed the kiss down and pulled away, staring down at me. His eyes burned for me, wanting me to melt and buckle in his arms. I could feel myself melt already. He opened his mouth to speak, but a very small blush ran along his cheeks, and he was reduced to a shy silence. I stared as he tried to find the words to say in my eyes. I knew exactly what he wanted. He didn't need energy, though, right? Are you?
No, I just...
I stared wide-eyed. I don't know what she's trying to ask there. If you have suggestions, put them down below. Like, is she trying to say, like, are you horny? Are you, hungry? I don't know. Feeling a blush on my cheeks grow. He didn't say anything more. Oh, maybe it is, are you hungry? Because, he needs energy. Maybe she's asking if he needs energy. Okay, I got it. He wanted me. I was stunned. Was I that appealing to him? Was his passion really that deep for me? He gently nuzzled my forehead, losing the blush and finally being able to speak.
If you don't want to, we don't have to. I mean, it's up to you.
He's a little cutie. I could feel my mind go numb and purr at the idea. A moment with an incubus. He was a demon of sex, the purest form of love and desire. My world would rock and I would enjoy every second of it. At the same time, I wasn't inexperienced. Did I want to give that innocence to him? Especially this early? What could I say to him? Let's be seduced! I needed him. I wanted him. Those 2 words must have made something in him finally break. He gently wrapped his arms around me and went back to kissing me passionately. I could feel his energy whiz about me, making me open one eye to see a blue light glowing around us. When the light subsided, I was in my bedroom and on my bed with Matthew above me. I stared as Matthew held a look of both lust and love. My heart skipped a beat simply from his gaze on me. That was okay. I wanted to see all of him and give myself to him. I gently guided his head to me, kissing him slowly and bringing him further into the mood. He slid both his hoodie and his shirt off and tossed them to the side before cradling my head in his hands and kissing me deeply. I felt the heat rise in my body, making me undo the tie underneath my collar and release the buttons of my own shirt. Quickly, I removed the shirt and vest, making Matthew stop kissing me and stare in slight surprise. Sorry for being popular. I was simply in a bra, but I could feel a blush invade my cheeks. My shy side began to fester in my mind. Did I really want this? To undress before a demon? No, this was a man I loved, and yet I felt my innocence drape over me in almost shame. I needed to fight it. I quickly rolled both of us over to where I was sitting on his lap, staring down at him. Matthew sat up, looking at me with one of the most sexiest smiles I'd ever seen. Oh, hello. Oh, hello. Matthew pulled me close, knowing that I was still shy, and began to kiss my lips over and over. Each kiss was his promise to keep me safe, keep me comfortable, and love me. I kept my arms wrapped around Matthew, taking each kiss he gave me and gently giving him my own kisses in return. I didn't know if it was the fact that we were both nude or top nude. That's funny. I've never heard that phrase before. Or maybe I just craved his touch, but I didn't want to let him go. However, as he held me, I could feel the shiver of his hands. Was I his first? He wasn't going to tell me. He wanted me to enjoy this moment, but was afraid of screwing it up. His shivering hands showed me his motions perfectly. As he laid me down and knelt over me, Matthew smiled and finally embraced me as we both desired. The pleasure between us would be heavenly, and we'd go through it together. I closed my eyes and gave myself to Matthew. My body, my mind, my soul, it all belonged to him as he held me. His body, his mind, his soul, it all belonged to me as I gave into his embrace. His kisses and fingers over my skin would forever engrave themselves into my memory as our passion rose through incredible heights. Our breaths and moans to each other equally sounded and echoed like a blissful chant we never wished to end. We kept moving, loving, feeling every inch of our bodies until we had had enough, and I was enveloped in his embrace. Skin to skin, heartbeats matching, we held each other in the glow of the aftermath. I nuzzled my head under Matthew's chin as he held me close.
I love you.
I love you too. Just to hear those words come from Matthew's mouth made my heart flutter. To hear me answer made my soul warm in glee. I could feel both of us sink into a peaceful sleep together. It was the best sleep I'd had in days, and I was happy. I had love, and I had my happiness. My life was simply perfect. When I opened my eyes, I found myself staring into Matthew's bare chest. I blushed, but looked up to see Matthew still sleeping. His sleeping face made me giggle softly, but the reality of the situation made my heart flutter. I couldn't believe it. I was lying next to a man I had grown to love with all of my heart. His warm embrace made me feel safe, and as the tender moment we just shared replayed in my head, I couldn't help but smile and snuggle into his chest further. Unconsciously, he held me tighter to his body, giving me more of his warmth. I didn't want to move, but suddenly I became possessed, and Diana tried to make me commit suicide.
By the way.
Ew.
Well, I just wanted to see.
I slept
I'm
with
giving
him.
you an opportunity to...
That's super gross. I don't like that. No. Thank you. So I'm good. Matthew loved me, and I loved him just as much. We had promised our lives to each other, and nothing was going to take that away from us, not even time itself. Oh, wow. Our love was so powerful, it practically overwhelmed me with joy every time I found him holding me close every morning. To think, a demon in love with a human like me. It was unthinkable, unbelievable, it was practically impossible. But it was true. The other boys decided to leave of their own accord. They knew my future would only need Matthew at my side, so they decided to start their own lives in the human world. Matthew understood perfectly, wishing his brothers the best. Besides, Matthew had proven to be a man by finding someone to care for. His brothers didn't need to worry about him now that he was caring for me. I felt bad as well for being closer to Matthew than the others, but they reassured me that I was okay, and that they would remain nearby should I ever need them. I was happy for that. They made me promise, however, that I would love Matthew for as long as we lived. That promise was instantly given. But what of my future? It was made for me. Oh, James is CEO again. Come on. Come on. I want to be CEO. Although I'm guessing that's not what she wants. Matthew reassured me he would support me and help me through whatever I decided to do. I was grateful and would never forget that promise. I was happy, and nothing could shake me down from that happiness. One afternoon, a good couple of years after the boys and I had met, I had a moment to myself, so I was looking around and reminding myself of everything. I realized I was standing in the dining room. I stopped at the smell of baked goods. Taking a gigantic whiff, I let the smell of sugar and sweets fill my senses. I knew we picked well. Matthew must be baking again. I tiptoed over and peeked into the kitchen, wanting to know what he was making.
Almost done.
I watched as Matthew started to decorate an already wonderful-looking cake with blue and white frosting. It looked delicious. I was practically salivating. However, as I watched him, I smiled. He looked so concentrated in his work. It was adorable.
And there! Perfect!
Matthew stepped back from the cake, allowing me to see his masterpiece. It was indeed perfect. I wanted to taste, and soon. That looks amazing, Matthew.
What?
He quickly turned to me in surprise, trying to hide the cake as I laughed.
I'm not done. I mean...
Matthew? I walked over and smiled, giving him a kiss before walking over to the cake. Closer, it looked all the more scrumptious. What is this for?
Well, I mean, it's for something pretty important.
I looked to Matthew, raising an eyebrow as he wrapped an arm around my waist. What is it for?
Guess. I'll give you 3 chances.
Or what? What if I don't get it right?
Then the cake is all mine.
Oh, no fair. I mean, that honestly was like a horrifying thought. I'd be like, no. Instinctively, I wanted to pull away, but Matthew laughed and dabbed some whipped cream on my nose from a nearby decorating spatula.
It's totally fair. Now just guess.
Is it your birthday? Matthew shook his head.
Nope. Second guess.
Is it an anniversary? Matthew nodded, but before I could cheer, Matthew rotated his hand, gesturing me to continue.
Anniversary of?
I puffed my cheeks. I could memorize facts and lessons, but dates were bad. It was like asking a girly girl when her boyfriend's frat party was. Matthew laughed before he kissed my cheek, making my puffed cheeks deflate.
It's the anniversary of when we first met.
Aww. I had practically forgotten. He was right. It had been a couple of years since I'd moved in and met Matthew and all his brothers. He threw a party last year for it. How could I have forgotten? Time definitely flew. Especially when you hit the skip key. Matthew. Matthew smiled at me, making my heart flutter and squeak once again.
I want to celebrate it every year in a different way. Next year will be something extraordinary. For now, though, this cake will do.
Oh. I quickly pulled Matthew's head down with my hand and kissed him sweetly, wanting to show my appreciation with that kiss. He stared at me as if his greatest wish had come true. I fought back a giggle at the sight. Matthew gently pulled me to him, hugging me to his chest. I nuzzled into Matthew's chest, hearing his gentle heartbeat and memorizing its tempo.
I love you.
No. I love you too. Before I could finish, suddenly the cake, which had been sitting silently and peacefully on the counter, exploded into a giant mess on it. Matthew, luckily, was quick enough to pull us back before we got hit by the flying pancake pieces.
What the?
I looked at the cake to see a very mischievous little creature standing over the cake, triumphant at what it had done. I began to laugh as Matthew grew red-faced.
Simon Tabby!
I quickly rushed over and grabbed Simon, who made a squeak noise in my hands. I was still giggling as Matthew came over and glared daggers at the white doll covered in cake. I would not be so pleased. I have spent hours on a cake before. If he had destroyed it, I would be so mad. Oh, but this is cute. To calm Matthew down, however, I stretched up on my toes and kissed him softly on the lips. You guys are so cute. Matthew stared but kissed back, not wanting to let go without a kiss of my own. I love you, Matthew. Matthew sighed before smiling at me, finally calm.
I love you too.
I didn't want to wake up if this was indeed a dream. I felt light as a feather, not wanting to ever let go of this man in my life. There were no words that could describe the emotions within me. Here I was with the man who I would be with forever, with the cake I would delight in, even in pieces. I gained the heart of a demon, no, a man that I loved. I vowed to cherish him and love him for the remainder of my days and beyond. Could a demon love a human forever? I knew Matthew would. And that was my happily ever after. He didn't propose? This is Matthew's cake. I mean, I'm guessing that's the good ending. Oh, new password unlocked. Yeah, except you've unlocked it every single time. Like, really? Well, I like that there was cake, but I'm also sad there wasn't a ring. But I suppose I will get over it. Hello! So I got all the cute little thingamajigs for Matthew. Here he gave us, a fluffy thing. And then here he gave us a smoochy thing. And then over here he has a Sharpie thing. And then there's more of the swooshiness and its deliciousness. And this is more so, body heat. He's a very giving man. A very giving man. That's all I gotta say about you, Matthew. What did you think? Who should I do next? Figuratively speaking-ish. So I am enjoying Seduce Me. I'm using it more so as a buffer in between different games that I'm doing now. I still have Sam and Damien to go. So one day I will get to them. Don't worry. I have not forgotten about this game. I still enjoy it, for sure. And so we'll see what happens with those guys next time. Sorry if this is a super long episode. I might have to cut it up longer than usual because I cut the previous one short. But we'll see. I hope you all stay awesome and stay sweet and that your cake does not explode. Have a good one.